We have Sherry McMichael here, who is the Executive Director for Variety, the children's charity of Iowa, since June 2000. And Sherry's responsible for the overall management and supervision of Variety to ensure the ongoing success and growth of the organization. This includes planning multiple fundraising events each year, overseeing Variety's mobility program, Compassion Fund, and Variety Star Playgrounds. Additionally, she leads Variety's grant process, which provides funding to over 100 children's organizations throughout Iowa. Prior to working for Variety, Sherry served as the Vice President of Development for Special Olympics of Iowa. And while at Special Olympics, Sherry oversaw and expanded the development efforts, increasing the funding by 250%. Not only is Sherry an advocate for children across Iowa and the nation, but she is also an advocate for her community. She served on multiple boards of directors over the years and currently sits on boards of the Wakanda Christian Club, Des Moines Downtown Chamber, Build Lincoln Higher, Lincoln High Alumni, and who's Jim? She's a Lincoln High alumni.
All right, way to go.
And Southwestern Hills neighborhood. Sherry is a Des Moines native, a graduate of Grandview College, lives in Des Moines with her husband, Mark, who works for Des Moines Flying Service, and their son, Sam, is in his final year of law school at Drake University. I want to welcome Sherry, congratulate you and your organization on being one of the top 25 nonprofits in the metro or in Iowa, as the business record proclaimed, and thank you for telling us about the program. I want you to know that Dan is recording this. We edit out our business part of it and then share this on our Facebook website or Facebook page for
Oh,
Kiwanis.
great.
So
Okay.
hope you're okay with that.
I am perfect with that.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about Variety, the children's charity, formerly known, many of you may know it as Variety Club. We changed our name a number of years ago to better reflect who we are. Working, the club portion was like, oh, you have to be a member to be involved or to donate, and that certainly was not the case. And so we changed our name a number of years ago to reflect that, although people still reference us as a Variety Club. But as far as I'm concerned, if they get Variety in there, I'm good with it. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can share a PowerPoint here. Hopefully this all goes smoothly. We all know how our Zoom calls go anymore. So
Yeah.
let's see here. Why is this not moving down? There we go. So Variety, the children's charity. Why is that not? Okay, there we go. Is all about improving the lives of children who are at risk, underprivileged, critically ill, or living with special needs. And we do that in a variety of ways. Since 1974, we have raised over $119 million. And it all started when Variety Club was around prior to 1974, but really was not, they were raising some money, but not really putting it back into the community. And so there were 4 gentlemen that went to a Variety International conference, and they kind of got called to the carpet and said, you either start raising money and putting it into the community, or we're going to remove your charter. And so that is why, that's how the telethon started. I'm going to see if I can't switch this out a little bit. That is how the telethon started. And it started with those 4 gentlemen. They went to a conference to learn about telethons. They had no idea what they were doing, but they went ahead and moved forward with it. And the first year they raised $151,000. And if they were here, they would tell you that they cried like babies because they were thrilled with the amount of money that they raised. That very first grant went to Blank Children's Hospital. And the reason it went to Blank Children's Hospital was it purchased a piece of equipment that had that equipment been at Blank at the time, Stan and Jody Reynolds, who many of you may know, They had a daughter, Bridget, that passed away, and had that piece of equipment been there, she most likely would still be with us today. So that was a very special spot in their heart, and so that is where the dollars went. Last year, we raised $4.1 million. That's what we went off the air with on our tote board at Telethon. Telethon, and I'll get into some specifics about Telethon, but Telethon is a culmination of our year. So when you hear about the various events that we're doing throughout the year, we're rolling that number up into that Telethon tote board. So we take great pride in what we do here in Iowa. And we keep a very, very low administrative costs of 4%. We have 6 paid staff that cover the whole state of Iowa. 5 of us are right here in Des Moines. And then the other person is in Cedar Rapids, a 1-person office that we're trying to expand our footprint over into the eastern part of the state and raise more dollars and distribute more funds and help more kids over in that area. We do have a large board. Currently, we're sitting at 33, and of course, we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. And we have about 5,000 plus volunteers that we work with. Oops. Why is that thought? How does variety impact the community? Well, I like to say it impacts the community in a variety of ways. Our grants, our variety vans, our mobility program, and our inclusive playgrounds, as well as our compassion fund. Last year, we were able to provide $1.9 million, over $1.9 million to 74 different children's organizations. And when we talk about those grants need to have direct impact on the children that the organization is serving. So in order to make application, the organization must be a 501c3, and they must be requesting dollars that will have that direct impact. So if they're going to ask for money to expand their staff, that's not something we're going to pay for. If they're going to ask for equipment or some building renovation where they're going to provide those services, that is something that we will take into consideration. Let's skip that. Our variety vans, some of you may remember the variety vans with the great big sunshine on them. And when we changed our name and got a new logo, we made them a little less conspicuous traveling throughout the city of Des Moines. And so when we grant our variety vans, we are providing those vans to the organization. So for example, Hillcrest Family Services, which is pictured here, that van is in their name. It is titled in their name. It is not titled in Variety's name. But we also have an agreement with the organizations that if they no longer have use for the van, or and there's life left in it, then they need to notify us so that we can grant that out to another organization. We want to keep these vans on the road as long as we can to transport children. The vans must be used to transport children. They cannot be used for administrative purposes. And they are required to submit a van reporting form every year to let us know how many miles they put on the van, get pictures of the van, get proof of insurance, and so forth. And if we notice that the vans aren't being driven to the extent that we think that they should, 2020 may be a little different, but to the extent that they should, then we will reach out to them and talk to them and find out, why they're not utilizing the van, and is it something that they still need to provide services. It's a great traveling billboard, but it can also be one of those things where we'll get a phone call and say, hey, your van just cut me off, or is weaving in and out of traffic, or whatever. But for the most part, they're great visibility for us. We also have mobility for children with special needs, as well as mobility for children without special needs. I'm going to talk about our traditional bikes first. So our traditional bikes, we provide bikes, helmets, and locks to kids that have never owned their own bicycle. We will work with a school, or we will work with an organization to identify those kids, and those kids fill out an application of why they would like to win a bike. And then we determine a date and time that we're going to present those bikes. Usually we try to do it right there at the school or the organization to make it easy for the families. And the kids come and pick up their bikes, helmets, and locks. And we have a little bike rodeo with Des Moines police officers to talk to them about safety and so forth, and off they go. So obviously this last year with the restrictions created a little more creativity when it came to presenting the bikes. But traditionally we'll provide between 12 and 1,500 bikes throughout the state of Iowa. This year with restrictions, we were able to provide over 500 bikes to kids that didn't have their own bike. The second piece is our specialized bikes, mobility for children living with special needs. And by far, this is one of the things that we have developed in the time that I have been here, and just really warms my heart and resonates with me, because I see the impact that these bikes and mobility equipment, gait trainers, standers, specialized strollers, anything, standers, gait trainers, anything that goes hand in hand with getting a child mobile. And I could sit here and tell you story after story about impact. I'll tell you one that one of our little guys, Charlie, received his very first gait trainer in the fall of 2019. And prior to that, he had never taken steps other than if he was holding on to his mom and dad or an adult. And so with the gait trainer, that provided him with some freedom. But you know, Nancy, his mom, would keep in touch with me all the time and keep me updated. Charlie was taking those first couple of steps when we first provided him with his gait trainer. And that was in October. And I think by the 1st of January, he was going out to the Grimes Community Center and walking up to a mile a day on his gait trainer. He's now started taking steps on his own, independent steps. And that's the power of mobility equipment and the difference that it can make. I'm going to show you a video here right now that talks a little bit more about that.
Christopher was adopted from China. He was 3 years old when we adopted him. When he was born, he was 1.8 pounds, abandoned at birth in the winter. No medical care, just thrown into an orphanage. He does have cerebral palsy. He also has failure to thrive. So he has a feeding tube that we have to use to keep enough calories on board. He's quite the fighter, very determined, and everything medical he just attacks because he's so determined. We had some doctors at the beginning that just said, no, he's not going to be able to do this. No, he won't do this. He'll never be normal at this. And he's just broken through every single barrier and proved everybody wrong over and over again. Our physical therapist at Blank's Hospital, she seen the bike worked really well for Christopher in therapy. And so she started filling things out to see if we could get one donated to him. And Variety Club came up and accepted his application and presented him the bike. And ever since, it's just been the best thing ever for him. The independence that he has gained from this bike has been just incredible. You know, he's able to go out, he can do his own thing, and just that smile of keeping up with his brother, and now being able to pass his brother. He's definitely taken the role of, I'm the bigger brother now, and he gets to have some of those moments, because before he'd just be sitting on the ground and pointing and screaming that he wanted to be with the other people, and he couldn't get there. He didn't have the mobility, and now he does. Not only with the bike, but without, because the strength that he has gained from the bike alone. He's got the strength to get up and now walk over there and be a part of so many things he couldn't be a part of before. From the bottom of our hearts, we just thank Variety for doing this for our family. It just truly means the world. Are you gonna ride your bike when you go home? Yeah!
think that does a lot better job at explaining exactly the impact that the bike has and seeing a child that has benefited from the bike. Since we took that video, Christopher has strived, made such great progress that he now does not have his feeding tube. He has grown so much that we have provided him with a second specialized bike so that he can continue with his therapy. You know, you saw him walking there, not real steadily, but he is now walking much more steadily. You know, people do ask me when kids outgrow their pieces of mobility equipment, specifically specialized bikes, what do we do with those? The first thing we do is we aren't going to provide that to another child. I feel like, you know what, every child deserves to get their own brand new piece of equipment, including specialized bikes. But at the same time, we want those pieces of equipment continuing to make impact. And so there is a real need with the public schools with the adaptive PE programs. And so we have been providing those bikes to the adaptive PE programs so that those kids can participate in PE while they're at school. So the third piece is our Variety Star Playgrounds. And some of you may remember the name Ashley Oakland. Ash was the young realtor that was murdered in West Des Moines. And she was a member of our Young Variety Board. And so as you can imagine, we received a large sum of money in her memory. And so we really wanted to do something that was going to keep her spirit and her name alive in our community. And Ash was all about bringing everyone together and making everybody feel comfortable. And so after several months of tossing around different ideas, we realized that Des Moines did not have its own inclusive playground. There was one being built in Ankeny, but that was about the only thing. And so we started working with Park and Rec and identified Ewing Park. Ewing Park is located on the southeast side of town, a great family park that has a lot of different amenities. And there was a new bike trail that was going in, and we thought that this would be the perfect place to build the Ashley Oakland Star Playground. So we kicked off our campaign, and you know, you can imagine the emotion that was around you know, raising those funds, and we're able to raise the funds for the playground in addition to a butterfly garden and some benches and so forth. And so we installed our very first inclusive playground at Ewing Park in 2014. Had a ribbon cutting, and I can't say enough about Des Moines Park and Rec and the way that they have maintained the playground. It is a destination playground. So it is one, and it is the busiest playground in the city of Des Moines. And I will tell you that when we started, you know, talking about inclusive playgrounds, I had to even explain what an inclusive playground was. That was how new the concept is. But we also realized that, you know what, it was a great opportunity for variety. We were raising funds. We were gifting something to the community that was going to have many, many years of a lasting impact. And so from Des Moines, we then went to Cedar Rapids and raised money for our second inclusive playground at Knoll Ridge Park. And now we came back and we decided to raise money for a third inclusive playground. And I don't know how many of you know about the renovations that have taken place at Riverview Park. That is where the old amusement park was up until 1974. And the Friends of Des Moines Park have put in a huge, beautiful amphitheater right there. And so we thought that this was the perfect place for our second inclusive playground here in Des Moines. We also thought it was important to incorporate the history and have a look and feel of the old Riverview amusement park. So you can see in these pictures that, you know, we've got coasters, we've got Wild Mouse, we've got what things would cost at that time. They can do a scavenger hunt. There's a Ferris wheel that serves more as a climbing piece. I don't have a picture on here, but we have a zip line. And so even though we haven't officially opened this playground due to COVID, it was complete in August. You can see by the footprints in the snow there that kids and families have found it and are utilizing it. And so we're really excited to be able to provide the second inclusive playground here in Des Moines, and to also provide a destination playground for that area. That area does not have a large playground, and so we're looking forward to hosting events. We're planning on hosting a back to school event in August, where we can highlight the playground as well as provide back to school backpacks, bikes, and do a whole big event there. Our compassion fund is something that we quietly do, and the compassion fund is dollars that are set aside for families that have a child in the hospital who are critically ill. And so many times these kids will be in the hospital for a long period of time, or maybe they're going to get transferred to Mayo or Iowa City or Gillette or something along those lines. And the social workers have an ATM card where if they see a family that is struggling that could use a step up and a little handout, then they have the opportunity to go to an ATM machine, pull out up to $200, hand it over, say, here, this is to help with your gas, or it's to help with utilities, or it's help to a hotel stay, or anything along those lines. And we've been doing this program now for 20 years. And my husband is a CPA, former CPA, now CFO of a company here in town. And I remember him saying, "You're going to do what?" and questioning the controls on that. And I am thrilled to tell you we do spot checks, and spot checks can be a little touchy at times, because many times the child does not survive, but at the same time we feel a responsibility to our donors to make sure that we are spot checking and so forth. And I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that we've not once had an issue with money being misappropriated or anything. In fact, we have families that benefited from the Compassion Fund, that whether their child, survived or did not survive, have gone on to do fundraisers to benefit the Compassion Fund. And I'm just going to show you. Oops. What happened there? There we go. Well, maybe it's not going to play. No. Oh, here we go.
Our daughter, Emma Josephine Hart, was born July 30th, 2008. She was a couple of weeks early, and but she was only 4 pounds, 13 ounces when she was born. We were not able to hold her very often at all. Any movement was just too much for her heart. We were basically living at the hospital. One of the social workers came to us and said, here are some gift cards. This is through Variety Club's Compassion Fund. We tried to say, no, we have a lot of help from family and friends. Please give it to someone else who needs it. And she said, no, this is what it's for, and just insisted that we take it. And we were very, very moved by that, because we didn't know that the Compassion Fund existed or what it was for. And so that just meant a lot to us. Brian and I knew that we had really done everything we could for Emma, and that she was really sick, and that living was just really hard for her. And so we decided to let her go. Brian and I held her in our arms, and when they pulled her breathing tube out, she smiled at us. And that was the first and only time she had ever smiled at us before. So it made us feel like we were doing the right thing, that she was telling us that it was going to be okay. Thank you so much for what you do, what you did for our family, and a very strong time of need for us. And thank you for giving back and for just being there for so many families like us.
Oops. So that is our compassion fund, and Brian and Jamie Hart, they have continued to do a fundraiser every year that generates anywhere between $7,500 and $10,000 a year in Emma's memory. So one of the things that Variety loves to do, probably more than any other organization, is our events. And obviously, 2020 was a challenge with events, but I'm thrilled to tell you that we were able to still host, maybe not host in-person events, but still be successful at our events, whether it was through a campaign to raise money for mobility equipment, or just pivoting, as that became my new favorite word in 2020, pivoting to, provide something, a dinner or steaks or whatever the case may be, along with coolers and so forth, to our table sponsors. So we are moving forward with 2021. Polo on the Green is probably our most unique event that nobody here in town can replicate, because you need a polo field, and you need a polo team, and we have opportunity with both. And so we are moving forward with our Polo on the Green event in July. Our Variety Stag event is a men's only event that generates about $200,000 a year. So when I get questions about why we're hosting a men's only event, I say, because you know what, the men are passionate about raising money for kids, and we're raising a lot of dollars that go hand in hand with that. Our Variety Golf Tournament in September, we've moved what was traditionally our kickoff event for the year, Black Tie Gala, from January to November. And then our 2 days of compassion that focuses on our compassion fund. How you can get involved: you can volunteer, you can serve on a committee, you can become a Variety VIP. Go to our website, take a look at different opportunities and so forth. But we're always wanting and looking for new people to get involved. So obviously, telethon is our biggest fundraiser. We were very, very fortunate last year to complete our telethon just 2 weeks prior to, our world changing. And obviously, I was of one, that figured we would be back to our normal ways by May. I was still very optimistic that by July we would be hosting our polo event in person. Proved me wrong. Stag, I figured we'd be back in person. Proved me wrong. So come about November, I figured, you know what, we're not going to be able to host telethon in the traditional manner. To give you an idea, while we roll a lot of our events up into our tote board, telethon itself will raise about $1.5 million. And so when we started taking a look at what we were going to do, we thought, we can't just, not have it. We need to do something. We have VIPs, which are volunteers that go out and raise money for Variety, of about 200 people strong. And those VIPs will generate over $1 million. And so we thought, well, at a minimum, we need to work with our VIPs and reach out to them and see who is interested and who will continue to help. And I'm thrilled to tell you that we didn't have one VIP say, nope, I can't do it this year. That everybody was all in. Our corporate phones, obviously, there are many corporations that host Variety weeks leading up to telethon, and with employees not being in the office together, that's created a new hurdle for us. But we are, again, pivoting and adjusting, and we still have our corporations that are supportive, and they're still working to raise money. So how are we going to adjust? Our telethon is held on ABC5 right here in Des Moines. And so with that, we're going to do a Variety week, the week of March 1st. So the morning and midday shows will feature interviews, as well as KCWI, where we will be talking about impact and about working with some of our donors and so forth. we're working with them to do a 30-minute special that will probably be aired on Friday or Saturday night at 6:30. That will, again, talk about impact, how the dollars that are raised are impacting our community and the kids that we're providing services to. And then we're hosting we're streaming a 60-minute program that will have more of a look and feel of telethon, not entertainment. 60 minutes goes very, very quickly. And so I really want to put the focus on mobility. We're going to be providing 3 pieces of mobility equipment. We're going to do a montage of impact, where the dollars went as far as grants are concerned, and highlighting some of our corporate and VIP panels. So we are adjusting, and our volunteers are out there raising money. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody on this call hasn't already been approached for a variety pledge. One of the things that I quickly learned when I joined Variety, and it happens all the time, where somebody will say, "Oh my gosh, Variety helped my friend," or we just had a Young Variety board member that past Young Variety board member that was pregnant, and little Christopher came 7.5 weeks early, and all of a sudden she's in the NICU. They're in the NICU with little Christopher, and Christopher just went home this past weekend. So little did she know how the dollars that she was raising for Variety were going to impact her own child. And so, I like to say that I would take a bet that everybody the majority of people in our community either know somebody or has personally been impacted by the dollars that Variety has provided in our community. So, and that is the gist of my presentation today. I know that was a lot of information in a short time, but it's something that I love. I love what I do. It's great fun. I always say I have the fun of raising the dollars and the fun of just, I don't have a vote, but I do sit in on every grant process and so forth. But it's just been a real joy to see how things are going, and seeing the impact that, whether it's our grants, whether it's mobility, whether it's traditional bikes or playgrounds, that Variety's dollars are making on our community. So thank you.
How do you know when there's a family at the hospital that needs help?
So it's the social workers that they work with the families on an ongoing basis up at the hospital. And the social workers are the ones that identify the families. So periodically we'll get a phone call. In fact, on Friday, I just got a phone call from somebody that had a baby in the NICU at Mercy Hospital. And she said, "Hey, one of my friends was telling me about the Compassion Fund." And so I put her in touch with the social worker up at the hospital, and they connected, and we were able to help that family as well.
I wondered because I don't know how it worked, because my grandson was in the NICU for 2 weeks
Oh, okay.
3 years ago, and I just didn't know how someone like you knows when someone needs help or doesn't need help, I guess.
Yep. We really rely on the social workers there to because we don't have access, but if we get phone calls, then we'll connect them with the social workers.
And the playgrounds again, because I don't know, you told the names, but I don't know where those are at. Can you kind of tell me where they're at?
Yeah, so the playground, the very first one, the Ashley Oakland Star Playground, is on the southeast side of town, just off of Southeast 14th and McKinley, or Indianola Road, Indianola and McKinley there. The second one that we did is in Cedar Rapids, and it's at Knoll Ridge Park on Collins Road, off of Collins Road. And the third one that we haven't officially unveiled is Riverview Park, which is just off of 6th Avenue.
Okay.
Just Sherry, I've in the past, I've had the opportunity in an organization I was involved with to answer phones at the telethon. So I've seen that whole production happen. And so as I think about that, my guess is trying to put something like that together is a huge undertaking. Is that something you handle out of your office, or do you have a company that you work with that helps produce that?
Yeah,
that
so thank you for asking that, because that is something, we do not hire a company to do all of that for us. We do a lot of work on that out of the office. And then the Reynolds family, they really coordinate all of the producing of it, where, who's going to go, I schedule the interviews, I schedule the check presentations. So it's kind of a hand-in-hand effort. We also work with CLE Productions, which is over on the east side, and they provide all the sound and lighting and so forth. But as far as managing the telethon and determining, who's going to be singing at what time, or what phone panels are going to be on, or check presentations, or interviews, or whatnot, that all comes out of our office, and we work very closely with Reynolds family. So yeah, we're not paying anybody to do that for us.
Well, great. I mean, you guys do a great job. It's a very well done production. So congratulations.
It's funny, because before joining Variety, I would go to the telethon, and I would sit there and go, oh my God, do they even know what the left hand's doing? And yes, it looks like chaos behind the scenes, but we actually do know what's going on, and so forth. And, you can do it two ways. And in my 20 years here, we've had people that get very uptight about things. And then we have other people that go, well, you know what? It is what it is. It's live TV. It's a program. So we just keep moving forward. So
Great.
I prefer the fun way. That's much more enjoyable for a long weekend.
I have a question going back to Riverview.
Uh-huh.
I've been there on my bicycle, and it's a really neat looking playground. But is there parking, and how do people get there and use it, or how will they?
Yeah, so there is a community center that sits just adjacent to right there on 6th Avenue to the playground. There is parking there. They are also developing parking just at the bridge location. So there's parking there. There are also if you don't know, they also do concerts there called Rendezvous on the River, and on Friday nights. And so the Friends of Des Moines Park have been working on parking lots and parking situations. Some of those buildings the city's working with them to get rid of them so that they can develop more parking, because we do feel as if this is going to be not just for the Variety Star Playground, but more so with the concerts that are going to take place at Riverview, that they're going to need to have parking available. So one of the things, we were talking about doing a concert this upcoming summer, and just decided that there were too many unknowns for us to proceed forward. But one of the things that we talked about, if we were going to move forward with a concert there, was we were going to work with Keck Parking so that we would have shuttle service and so forth from North High School. But yes, that is on the docket to take a look at, so that there's plenty of parking.
Does
Yes.
Park and Rec own that property?
Yes,
Okay.
that is Park and Rec.
Okay.
I don't know what year it got turned over to Park and Recreation, but yeah, they own the property. And if you haven't been by there in a while, there have been a lot of improvements made. So obviously one of my concerns and one of my board's concerns was, what about flooding? And they've taken care of that issue as far as flooding now. Something like the rain that we got 2 summers ago, when it just rained like however many inches in a matter of an hour. I mean, those things you can't control, but I feel very confident at where the playground is as far as flooding is concerned.
We are a Kiwanis club,
Yes.
and that used to be Kiwanis Nature Island.
Yes, I remember that. I'm a Des Moines native, so
Des
I've been
Moines.
here since I was 6 months old.
Is Ted Kopic still involved?
He's not involved anymore. Obviously, he was for years and years and years.
He worked with Stan.
Yes, yep, he worked at Reynolds and Reynolds, and when he retired, in fact, we just heard from him a couple weeks ago. So,
Oh, did you? I haven't
yeah.
heard from him in a year.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, that's amazing work, Sherry, and that that story was an emotional story. Little Emma, so very, very effective in getting the message across.
Well, thank you again. I love talking about variety. I think, sometimes people know about the telethon and might know about our events, but the most important thing to me is that people understand where those dollars are going and the way that they're impacting them. We, like I said, we have fun raising it, but it's even more fun when we can distribute it, whether it's through grants or playgrounds or bikes or mobility equipment. So thank you.
Well, and just understanding the name change, because, even though I'm not a Des Moines native, Variety Club of Iowa is what I always knew of. So just understanding it's the same thing with the new name. So
yep, same thing with the new name. And like I said, I have some board members that just really get upset about, oh my gosh, they said Variety Club. And probably one of the best ones was I was doing a presentation. We were at Principal. It was a kickoff for Principal Charity Classic. And we were presenting 10 pieces of mobility equipment in the atrium of 7-Eleven High. And Dan Houston was there to, talk about the employee campaign and about kicking that off, and then turned it over to me to talk about mobility and the presentation to those 13 kids and families. And he said, now I'd like to introduce Sherry McMichael with Variety Club. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to say a word. Right there. I said, that's all I care about. And then he came up to me after and he goes, oh my gosh, I said Variety Club, didn't I? I said, Dan, you're fine.
yeah, I got to worry about that.
Yeah.
Well, certainly appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day and stay warm.
Yeah,
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.